welcome to the 85th Celebrity Synastry chart reading where I will be looking into Indiyah Polack and Dami Hope. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a Synastry chart looking at the personal planet signs aspects and at house overlays if birth time is available. I share these notes and add my insights and interpretations along the way. Feel free to leave your own in the comments below. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us weekly, and let's get right into it. Starting off with the sun, we have Indiyah's sun in Sagittarius and Dami's sun in Aries. These are both fire signs. It's a high-spirited relationship and they inspire strength in the other, which I feel like, because they were in Love Island, right? Like they would kind of have to have those high spirits, I would imagine, for reality TV. They can be themselves here and neither feels smothered here, which you could kind of hope so. Indiyah is not threatened by Dami's competitiveness, which, kind of matches with the theme of them being that sort of like, reality competitiveness show. As far as I know, Love Island is just like another reality TV show, like love show, that kind of has that sort of like game show vibe to it. So adds up. So I imagine like with their dynamic, potentially Dami was quite competitive like throughout the whole show, and it just wasn't something that fazed Indiyah. Dami's sun Trine Indiyah's Mercury. There's a great friendship and they have good communication, and Dami accepts Indiyah. They both just get each other and they do business together well, which I feel like you could see this as, them potentially doing some other kind of, thing after the show. But I feel like during the show, potentially they could have been up, competitive together. And you could see like, doing business together well as doing some kind of strategy together as well. Dami supports Indiyah's beliefs and they can talk through issues together. Very much, again, matching with the sort of like theme of being in a game show, supporting the other contestant and also being able to, have them as a confidant as well. Dami gets what makes Indiyah tick and Dami admires Indiyah's intelligence. They understand each other on a basic level and they speak to each other with understanding. Dami allows Indiyah to express herself, which is going back to how both of them can be themselves here and they don't necessarily feel smothered either. Dami feels he can think better around Indiyah. Dami's sun square Indiyah's Venus. Views on the world clash and it is not as promising as it looks. So potentially maybe they were like a sort of like, favorite of the contestants. The audience, they were kind of like a couple favorite for the audience. They were shipping them, but potentially it was not as promising as it looks. I'm not sure if they are still together or they, were just a thing on the show, but that is there. So hopefully we will see a bit more when it comes to sort of like longevity and all of that. Arguments over money, not really surprisingly so, because as far as I know, like I'm sure there would be some sort of like cash prize at the end of the show. So, you kind of are going into this like in the modern day and age, you kind of, the contestants are going there for, money and the sort of fame and everything rather than like love and all of that. Love can easily turn into hate and Dami is selfishly ambitious. So it seems like he is a bit more sort of like in it for the game if we're looking at them, the dynamic in terms of like where they originated from on the game show and all of that. Seems like he's a bit more on the sort of competitive side. I mean, we are seeing this selfish, ambitious thing now, but we also did see that, Indiyah's not threatened by his competitiveness. So this seems to be a sort of like pattern thus far. Indiyah strives to keep the relationship balanced and both hope to find what they are looking for in the other. Okay. Dami's sun opposite Indiyah's Mars. Sparks fly and Indiyah is defensive. Not surprisingly so. I feel like if you are on a game show with someone and there is someone quite like ambitious and competitive, you would have that tendency to be a bit on the defense, wouldn't you? Both assert their independence and they compete with each other, literally. They get annoyed with each other. Dami's sun sextile Indiyah's Uranus. They start as friends, so I imagine potentially they weren't like, because as far as I know, it's sort of like they start as friends, so potentially they weren't, feeling that in the beginning. Or you could also read this as like in Love Island, I'm pretty sure it is a situation where like there is a group of people and everyone kind of needs to like match off, like pair off like it's Noah's Ark. So I potentially, you could also read this as maybe they weren't initially like coupled up. They were kind of interested in other people at first. It's a relationship of freedom, and Dami is attracted to Indiyah's originality. They enjoy intellectual conversations together, and they both encourage the other to be themselves. So that keeps getting repeated here, which is nice. Frequent changes occur in the relationship, and Dami finds Indiyah to be inspiring and exciting. Dami may feel threatened by Indiyah's lack of limits, and they both have a strong attraction to the other. Relationship works best when both encourage the other's independence, which seems to be happening here. As far as what we are seeing, there seems to be a lot of like encouraging the other to be independent, and also like they seem to be quite attracted to the other when it comes to them being themselves and all of that. So it seems like they very much are encouraging that independence. Dami's sun trine Indiyah's Pluto. It's transformative. In a way, it would definitely be for both of them. As far as I know, this is kind of like they're not sort of like influences going on to Love Island. They are just another group of people that are going on the show to get that social media fame. Not that I'm saying those are the like genuine like, you know, motives for going on the show, but you know, as they're just another group of people that have become famous off of Love Island, which would be transformative in a way, I'm sure. It's a productive relationship, so going back to potentially like there's sort of good business dynamic here. Probably, I would assume them being a bit more strategic together. They are fascinated with each other, and they both want to get to know each other deeply. Indiyah inspires Dami to dramatically transform himself. Not sure in what way. We haven't really seen any particular way this could be so far, so hopefully we'll see a bit more. So now it's time for moon. We have Indiyah's moon in Virgo and Dami's moon in Cancer. They both worry a lot, so you could see this as they are both quite, like, I guess you could say invested in the show, and do definitely invested in the sense that they worry a lot about the position potentially, and like if they're going to be in the game or not and all of that, which we have seen a bit more on Dami's end. He seems to be quite strategic. Dami may find Indiyah difficult to live with, so I mean you could see this like if they are in a relationship, more serious relationship now, and them living together and finding that out. But you could kind of see this as their time in the show, because as far as I know, they actually do like live together. I mean, as far as I know, there are different quarters. It's not like everyone's bunched together in one room. But you know, you could kind of see that as them living together. Maybe they have their difficult time on the show. That is there. Express their cares in different ways, and Dami can help Indiyah to be more loving. Indiyah's moon trine Dami's Venus. There's mutual appreciation, and it is easy to compromise. The only thing we have seen when it comes to like clashing on like, you know, things they could potentially compromise on is like views of the world clashing, but otherwise they seem to be, we haven't seen anything against them being harmonious on things, so that's them. There is natural affection, and they're a social couple, literally. They are supportive of each other during conflict. This seems to be coming up, like they're able to be like a confidant for each other. They appreciate art together. Indiyah's moon opposite Dami's Mars. It's an emotional roller coaster, and Indiyah finds Dami to be aggressive. I feel like this would be in terms of maybe he's sort of like, you know, aggressive in terms of maybe coming off a bit strong strategically, if that makes sense. Maybe he is just that competitive. He just comes off as a bit like abrasive. That is there. Dami finds Indiyah to be demanding, and they both get defensive, which we did see on Indiyah's end, not surprisingly so, especially if it seems like we keep seeing things to indicate that Dami is quite like maybe abrasive in his strategy and all of that. Very competitive. Both react instinctually to each other, and Indiyah wants commitment with Dami. Okay. It's just interesting to say. I feel like with Dami, we're seeing a lot of indicators that he's very much, you know, in the show for more strategic purposes. I would be surprised if he genuinely came on the show for like love. I feel like he was in it for more like competitive reasons. He seems to be very competitive. We keep seeing that. And on Indiyah's end, not so much. Not to say that Indiyah didn't go on the show for like other reasons other than love. Well, modern days, I feel like, especially with the amount of fame you get from them, I would be surprised if a lot of people would genuinely go on those shows to find a relationship. But maybe that was kind of what Indiyah was looking for in a way, compared to Dami, that was what she would have been looking for, if that makes sense. Hopefully it did. Codependency is likely to occur. The only way I could really see this, maybe they had a sort of alliance on the show together. Indiyah's moon opposite Dami's Saturn, attracted to the other because of their different views. I mean, we did see the world views clash, so that is there. But otherwise, we have seen they just genuinely seem to be attracted to the other, so both have something the other needs, and Dami tries to influence Indiyah. Okay. There's a difficult emotional connection, and Dami sees Indiyah as needy and immature. I don't like seeing this right after we saw that Indiyah wants commitment, because Indiyah needs to be more independent from Dami. Indiyah's moon at Trine Dami's Uranus. They both feel free to express themselves. We're seeing again, I'm a record player now. Dami is more open around Indiyah. Yeah, they seem to be quite open with each other when it comes to communication and all of that. Ideas of unconventional domestic setup bring them together. This kind of does align with, them living on some kind of island together for 3 months on the TV show. It's pretty unconventional, and it is a domestic setup, so it kind of lines up. They can cope with sudden changes together, I believe we're seeing again. There is a level of unpredictability, and Dami feels safe around Indiyah, which there seems to be a pattern with this. They enjoy talking about social issues, and mutual friends may bring them together. You could see this one as being a bit more, maybe they did have mutual friends. But you could also see this as maybe their own friends encouraged them to be on the show. Indiyah's moon at Trine Dami's Neptune. Indiyah picks up on Dami's needs, so she seems to be a bit more invested, more personally in this relationship. Inspire the other. Art is a shared interest we're seeing again. They sense each other's feelings, and they share a sensitive and mystical worldview. So potentially in this way they would share worldviews. Potentially what we were seeing before, maybe they saw the game differently, because what we're seeing so far, there does seem to be quite a contrast of how they are approaching it, so maybe that is where their views differ and all of that. It's a mystical meeting, and they both uncovered the other's blind spots. Dami's moon is square Indiyah's Mars. It's a stormy relationship and an emotional roller coaster. We're seeing again the whole sort of a bit more turbulent, this bit more unpredictable. Both will need to work out issues as they come, and difficult relationship emotionally if there are children. As far as I know, they don't have any children, but that is there. Indiyah doesn't have the patience to connect with Dami's feelings. Interesting. I would have thought this would be the other way around. Hopefully we'll see a bit more. They're very reactive to each other, which we did see earlier how they are quite instinctual when it comes to reaction to the other. Possibility for codependency, we're seeing again. And Indiyah's independence makes Dami feel insecure. The way I interpret and read this is maybe if there is that sort of codependent alliance they have together, potentially maybe Indiyah seemingly stepping away from their alliance, whatever they had, as you'd have on game shows. Maybe she creates the impression she's stepping away, or maybe looks like creating an alliance with some other people, and that is what would make Dami feel insecure. Now for the intermission, this video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry chart readings on my Etsy store. I do both basic and detailed ones. The basic ones are a bit more simple to understand and really good for those just beginning out in astrology, getting their heads around it, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed readings are very similar to what I do here, so it's a lot of it just with my insights and interpretation on the chart. So if you're interested in that and everything else, astrology and tarot, readings and gifts, definitely check out my Etsy store for that. I'm always releasing new other things there as well. And you can even just favorite the store just to support me for free. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the reading. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Indiyah's Mercury in Sagittarius and Dami's Mercury in Aries. These are both fire signs. They are both very expressive, not surprisingly so. Conflict can come from their selfishness. Not surprisingly so, considering the nature of like where they met. You kind of do have to be a bit more selfish. It seems to be that way, particularly on Dami's end. So, you know, where you have to be selfish, it's not surprising that they would have that conflict. It's an energetic and enthusiastic relationship, that is one way to put it. They both get defensive quickly, and it's not a very practical relationship. Their Mercuries are trying together, so there's easy communication, which, you know, in a way it is, in terms of they don't feel particularly blocked. It seems like they're very like quite open with what they are saying, and it is easy for them to actually communicate. It's not of like blocking there. They solve problems similarly, which is why I imagine they would have like whatever had a bit of an alliance on the show. They hold similar views and they enjoy learning from each other. They have complementary ideas and thoughts, and there is a mutual understanding. Misunderstandings are unlikely. I mean, I kind of see this. It seems like they are quite open when it comes to like, you know, what happens, if that makes sense. There doesn't seem to be a lot of secretiveness in their relationship, and whatever, like, you know, any sort of conflict that they have it seems to be more of something they're disagreeing with rather than they're not understanding, if that makes sense. Indiyah's Mercury trine Dima's Mars. Dima stimulates Indiyah's mind, and Dima energizes Indiyah. Dima helps Indiyah develop her ideas, and there is healthy intellectual competition. I don't know if I mentioned this because we already have seen quite a few times there is an intellectual like pairing here. Indiyah teaches Dami how to be more reasonable, and they both move forward in this relationship. In a way they do. They work well together, and Indiyah helps Dima to problem solve. They enjoy debating together, and Dima takes Indiyah's words personally. Indiyah's Mercury trine Dima's Saturn. They work well together, which we keep seeing repeated. I'm just a record player here. They think in similar strategic ways, and they have serious conversations. So I really feel like they definitely had some kind of like more strategic alliance when it came to the show. Like, I feel like they were kind of like, you know, strategizing together. It seems like on Dima's end, particularly with what we saw in, like a lot in the beginning, it seems like he's a bit more of the instigator for it, maybe a bit more of the one motivated to be strategic. Indiyah appreciates Dima's mature thinking and sense of purpose, and Dima helps Indiyah bring structure to her life. They have effective communication, and Indiyah feels she can learn a lot from Dima, which I do think we saw before how they do learn from each other, so seems to be particularly on Indiyah's end. They solve problems together carefully and logically, which this does keep coming up, actually solving problems together. It's a long-term karmic relationship. Interesting. We haven't really seen anything in terms of like the length of their relationship, the longevity of it all. Like, we did see the one more negative child factor, but outside of that, we haven't really seen anything to indicate this is a bit more serious, but this is there. Hopefully we'll see a bit more so we can kind of get a nice holistic view. They're a team in the business and a relationship of spiritual evolution. Indiyah's Mercury sextile Dima's Uranus. They attract opportunities as a couple, and they are perceptive and intuitive of each other. I'm not really surprised with them attracting opportunities together. We have seen a lot like them working well together, teaming a business and all of that. I feel like these two are really good business partners more than anything, particularly since we are seeing that Dima is not as like personally invested as Indiyah. So I feel like they definitely are very good, like, business couple, very, like, on terms, like, very, you know, similar minds in that way, if that makes sense, able to work together really well on the same page. Indiyah finds Dima intellectually stimulating, we're seeing again, and they have open communication and encourage the other's vision. So going back to the beginning where they really encouraged the other to be themselves. Indiyah's Mercury sextile Dima's Neptune. There is easy communication and they share interests. So far we've only really seen they share like artistic interests. They are captivated by each other and they enjoy talking about art streams and spirituality, which spirituality seems to be a thing that keeps coming up sporadically. They just get each other. Indiyah's Mercury conjunct Dima's Pluto. Indiyah's words influence Dima, which we did see before how Dima takes Indiyah's words personally. So there does seem to be that influence, Indiyah's words have on Dima. They have deep conversations, and light conversations usually end in deep conversation. They feel they have a lot to learn from each other, and Dima tends to dominate conversation. Potentially another reason why Indiyah would find him a bit more abrasive. It's transformative, and Dima tries to impose his beliefs on Indiyah. I think we're seeing again, yikes. There is a mutual attraction of the other's mind. I see that. I feel like intellectually they are really good together. Dima demands to know Indiyah's secrets. I mean, if you are have a bit of an alliance in the TV show, you kind of want to know the other person's cards, all of them. So it's not really surprising considering the circumstances. Dima's Mercury opposite Indiyah's Mars. They likely bicker a lot, and Indiyah wants Dima to be more docile. Okay, I mean, I guess in terms of if Indiyah wants a bit more of a personal relationship, you kind of do want him to be a bit more, I guess, maybe she wants him to listen to her a bit more and maybe be a bit receptive to what she wants. Dima feels his intelligence is threatened by Indiyah. Oh no, I've been commenting they have a great intellectual relationship and now it's a U-turn. Dima's thoughts may rub Indiyah the wrong way. I mean, not surprisingly so, we have kind of been seeing this. Indiyah frequently interrupts, so maybe this is how Indiyah's words influence. I mean, we did see that, but impact, I should say, Dima. Potentially, her interrupting really bothers him. It's difficult to live together. Interesting how we're seeing this again. Okay. Indiyah tries to force her opinion on Dima, which we did see on Dima's end, so it seems to be a mutual thing. Dima's Mercury sextile Indiyah's Uranus, so this is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized, but also Dima finds Indiyah intellectually stimulating. Dima's Mercury trine Indiyah's Pluto. They have deep conversations, and there's a revealing of deep, dark secrets here, which I believe we were seeing how they kind of demand to know each other's secrets. Yeah, it was Dima demanding to know Indiyah's secrets, so that's there kind of repeated. Healing negative beliefs about relationships, and Indiyah helps Dima open his mind. It's a therapist-patient relationship. Normally, I like to say who's which. Honestly, in this one, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Indiyah would play therapist because she seems to be a bit more personally invested here, probably a bit more receptive to, listening to feelings. They get to the bottom of matters and they feel very close to each other. They resolve difficult issues together. So really going back to how, they really do problem solve together. They are able to strategize together. Dima is fascinated with Indiyah's depth, and Indiyah appreciates Dima's humor and easygoing nature. So now it's time for Venus. We have Indiyah's Venus in Sagittarius and Dima's Venus in Taurus. Indiyah makes the relationship exciting, and Dima gets frustrated with Indiyah's optimism. Oh, Dima is possessive of Indiyah, and I don't really like that because we did see he's very possessive of really wanting her secrets and all of that, which kind of is possessive in a way. So, Indiyah doesn't understand Dima's desire for security. The way I read this is potentially wanting security, to stay on the show, because otherwise, that seems to be the only thing she kind of doesn't seem to grasp is his, real determination. And in the context of the relationship, it would potentially be in the show, likely to be there. So potentially, yeah, it's just going back to how she doesn't really understand his sort of willingness to stay on the show and be successful. Indiyah's Venus square Dima's Mars. There is jealousy and possessiveness, and Indiyah sees Dima as dominant. So she definitely seems to see him as a bit more of that dominant, aggressive type of person. Dima sees Indiyah as seductive with no substance. I mean, I really hope this is just a first impression. It seems to be that way because he seems to value her intellectually. But I feel like, that is generally how I feel like a lot of people see the show. Interesting that the contestants potentially see that, the others that way as well. Indiyah's Venus squared Dima's Saturn. Dima is critical and demanding of Indiyah. Yeah, we did see with the secrets and all of that, so it's not great. Indiyah eventually withholds from Dima, and Indiyah sees Dima as unsympathetic. Dima sees Indiyah as childish and undisciplined, and criticism is rooted from jealousy. We did see earlier that Indiyah's independence makes Dima feel quite insecure. It seems like, because we're seeing, critical and demanding of Indiyah here as well, and seeing him as unsympathetic, it seems like he's very much possessive of her as like a sort of fellow game player, a fellow person in an alliance, rather than someone in a relationship. That's like what we're starting to like end with, it seems like. Dima's Venus sextile Indiyah's Jupiter. It's materially successful. Yeah. Indiyah finds Dima interesting and there is an ability to get over issues. They see the good in each other and it's a relationship of growth, which we have kept seeing that they do a lot of learning from each other. They trust each other and they thrive in each other's company, and they're a socially popular couple we see again. So now it's time for Mars. We have Indiyah's Mars in Libra and Dima's Mars in Aries. These are sister polarity signs, also cardinal signs as well. Dima is active, Indiyah is passive. I feel like a generally pretty good way to kind of summarize their relationship. In terms of Dima is definitely like active, like in terms of the game and everything. And then Indiyah seems to be a bit more passive, like sort of relaxed, you could say. Indiyah sees Dima as selfish. Yeah, Indiyah will defend themselves against Dima. She seems to be quite on the defense in this relationship, which Dima gets easily irritated with Indiyah, and Indiyah compromises with Dima. Dima is charmed by Indiyah. Their Mars signs are opposite to each other, so they enjoy each other's company and they are competitive, definitely on Dima's end. Lack of understanding of the other's anger. Indiyah's Mars trine Dima's Uranus. Indiyah feels free around Dima. I'm surely you would, because I feel like outside of being a sort of like you're my gay mate or whatever you like to call it, he's not possessive of her otherwise, it seems like. There's an unusual meeting and they respect each other's independence, which it seems like they generally do. Dima seems to be a bit iffy about Indiyah's, but on the whole, it seems like they both generally lean towards respecting the other's independence. Indiyah is not a fan of Dima's lack of boundaries and maybe an open relationship. I mean, it kind of is in a way. Like, anytime you kind of go on those, like, dating shows, you kind of are expecting that kind of dynamic, aren't you? Dima's Mars sextile Indiyah's Neptune. Dima is captivated by Indiyah, and Dima sees Indiyah as spineless. The relationship seems unbalanced to outsiders. I wonder, maybe that was the audience's impression as well. In whatever way. I don't know like how much you see on Love Island, if it is like more of a bachelorette or bachelor type of show where it's very like edited, or if it is like a Big Brother where you see everything. So I don't know how much you would see, because it feels like most of the relationship, like definitely on the show, seems to be very much about like strategizing, and it seems like their motives are unbalanced, if that makes sense. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I would be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. This is the first time I'm doing like a more like reality TV show couple, as far as I remember. I've covered a lot of readings, but definitely a more like game show couple anyway. And it was very interesting. Definitely let me know if you guys interpret this any differently, if you guys have any insights to this, because I know Love Island does have a very big fan base, a very dedicated fan base. So if you haven't made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. Besides that, give this video a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!